Hi, I'm Nate.
I'm Noah.
And welcome to another chat episode of Talking Lion. We're just here to catch up with you, to catch up with ourselves, just trying to just get through the week. And this has become kind of a highlight of the week, specifically because we have burgers.
Yeah.
And that's nice.
We've made a tradition. We're on time number 3 now. There's truly no going back from
That's a tradition. And we're not sponsored by Umami Burger, but hell, if they want us to plug them, we will, because man, that burger just gives me life.
I feel like a different person. It's like a before and after.
Am I the Spider-Man movie franchise? Because I feel rebooted.
Nice.
Yeah. I think we try to keep it pretty light on the show, but I feel like part of the thing that I hate about capital P positivity is that you just kind of avoid the rest of it. So I'm just going to say this sucks.
Oh yeah. Worth saying. This sucks.
Yeah, this sucks. I'm just I miss my friends. I miss bars. I miss everything. And I think it's important that we stay inside and stay safe. But I think that as people, we should also express that we're not crazy for thinking that this sucks.
Yeah, exactly.
I
feel a little crazy.
Yeah, it's a crazy situation. I hope everybody is safe. But yeah, this sucks. I just wanted to start the show by saying this sucks. But also, I want to plug 2 things. The first is that we have a Patreon. So if you like us and want to be a part of this show and want to help support the community and support us, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/talkinglion. It means the world to us and helps us keep this going. Secondly, as a band, because we're a band too, Sleeping Lion, we put out this song called Don't Like Me. Some of you listened to it and we really appreciate everybody who listened to it, but now we have shirts. This is the first time we have shirts for anything.
Our first run of shirts.
And they're comfortable.
Yeah, they're nice.
They're good.
I like the shirt.
I hand wrote the design. It says, I don't like me either. And the me is crossed out. It's a bit self-loathing. You get to publicly wear that. But I think, like we were saying about being able to be positive, but also air our negativity, you get to wear it. You get to own it. You get to have it be a part of you.
Yeah.
And it's, I think, a great conversation starter.
Definitely.
So check that out. It's on our website and on our Instagrams and everything. And that's, I think, everything I want to plug. Noah, do you want to plug anything?
Do I want to play anything? I mean, I technically released a song today.
Oh, you did release a song today.
Which, if you want to check it out, you can. I mostly just force myself to do it just for the sake of putting something out there into the world because I have trouble with that. So if you want to listen to it, it's a piece of content that you can consume if you want to.
It's good. I didn't hear you even work on it, which is awesome. That very
I
rarely
pretty much
happens.
pooped it out in the whole point was it was supposed to be something that I threw together without overthinking it.
So I can say objectively, I'm also a fan of it. So everybody should check that out as well because Noah McGuire happens to be a pretty talented guy.
I've been called worse.
That's fair. I say we get this show on the road. So,
without further ado,
this is Talking Lion. Pow, pow, pow. Pow, pow. So before we dive into the questions, our Patreon supporter, Alan C., had another question for us. So his question is, you've mentioned that when you're in a session, it's easier to make a song when you know a little bit more about how the person/people have been feeling recently. When you end up thinking of something, what is usually first? Lyrics, melody, or interesting parts like the hum in Don't Like Me? I feel like that question, the what comes first question, is one of those things that from the outside makes sense. Something has to come first, but sort of inside, it's a lot more kind of nuanced. Because I feel like there's never been okay, we're going to start here or we're going to start there. It's things constantly bubbling. I know in sessions, you're usually jamming on something, or I'm jamming on a kind of a sort of chord progression and humming stuff. And you hear, I'll sometimes hear lyrics in just how somebody is singing something.
But likewise, sometimes you are on pen to paper, you are writing words down and then coming up with melodies to fit those words.
Absolutely. I think what I enjoy more is when there's a kind of defined story to how something starts. I love the story of Losing My Head with Lizzie Land.
Yeah.
Because that was the kind of thing where when the session was starting and we were getting to know each other, she was like, "What's on your mind?" I'm like, "I just did a crossword puzzle, and one of the answers was Anne Boleyn." And then I wound up looking up Anne Boleyn and finding out about her whole thing and how that relates to current events. And that's been kind of on my mind just generally. But the fact that, she got beheaded and kind of just like didn't give a fuck when it happened. Like was sort of like, yeah, screw it. The world sucks. I don't want to be here anymore. So then when we were actually like sort of messing around with it, you know, I was just like, wouldn't it be funny if we wrote something called like Losing My Head?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the best when there's like a fun story to how something gets started. Because like a lot of times there isn't. A lot of times you're in a session, someone's coming up with melodies, someone's coming up with lyrics, like someone's jamming on chords, and then it kind of just like materializes in this very nebulous kind of way until you sort of have something, and then you improve upon that something. But it's not always that neat or clean that you're like you get hit with the inspiration that's like the title of the song.
Well, and so much of our like collaboration, because I don't typically like have voice memos of like melodies or like whatever. I tend to have, you know, my notes with like couplets or like, you know, beginnings of lyrical ideas. I don't even have like a concept list like Salem does. I just have like couplets usually. And so I'll hear you like making a beat, or like in the case of Don't Like Me, you know, you were just playing the guitar, and I'll just open up my notes and see, okay, does any of this fit with what he's playing? I'll sing it. No, it doesn't. It's a bit clunky. I'll sing it. Oh, that one works. I feel like getting to know somebody before a session, sometimes you get the story. Like Asper, when we were writing with Emily, she heard me tell this story of this relationship I was in, and I had said, I just wanted to haunt her a little bit.
Yeah.
You know? And she took that and ran with it, even though I wasn't paying attention to it. But mostly getting to know somebody is just getting comfortable enough to be able to like pitch ideas, to be able to write about somebody else's life and have them be okay with you doing that, to speak in a sense for them. Because when you're writing I. So to be able to say, I feel this way, and essentially putting that emotion out there for them to own for themselves, and building up that comfort, and knowing, like, having that conversation so it lets you in and also lets them know that you're like there with them, and essentially making trauma catchy. Thank you for the question, Alan.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Again, if anybody has questions, our Patreon is open, and we'd love to have you be a part of the show. Is this a power strip?
Is this a power strip? Because
look at all those.
Look at all the plugs.
I'd say we just like dive right into
the meat and potatoes of this thing.
Into the potatoes and the rosemary. The rosemary potatoes of the podcast.
Yes. So many things you can do with potatoes. French fries, hash browns.
It's very versatile.
Latkes.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. There's no segue. What are you listening to, man?
What am I listening to? It's something.
Something
my
new.
old. Oh, I actually listened to
old.
I was on a drive and I listened to all of Hot Fuss by the Killers.
Hot
Fuzz. Hot Fuzz.
Hot Fuzz.
I forgot which one it was. Hot Fuzz.
That's great, though.
Yeah. Wow. What a record.
What compelled you?
I don't know.
Did somebody tell you?
Oh. Ooh.
Yeah.
I don't have a good comeback to that. No, yeah, I was just inspired, and I listened to all of Hot Fuzz by the Killers, and it's just a great record. It's a record that started it all. It's got some interesting songs on it.
You know, the song that introduced me into the Killers was actually When You Were Young.
Oh, interesting.
Which is just I think like now knowing their catalog, and also knowing that like Hot Fuzz existed.
Yeah.
That's a weird song to be introduced to. But my best friend was like, "Hey, check out this song," and I'm like, "The singer sounds weird."
I feel like obviously I heard Mr. Brightside, but I feel like the song that got me into the Killers is actually Spaceman, because it was in Rock Band. It was in there was a very particular party that I went to in one New Year's, and it was the first time I'd ever seen like Rock Band or Guitar Hero, and we spent the evening just like playing songs. That's how I like first discovered Avenged Sevenfold and like All That Remains, and a bunch of other like metalcore bands. But it also made me fall in love with the song Spaceman by the Killers.
I feel like songwriters and producers don't talk about how much Rock Band affected their taste as like preteens or whatever. I feel like we don't talk about it enough. Either it specifically affected us, or just people are not talking about it.
Yeah, exactly. I like Rock Band and Guitar Hero were like formative. Like at multiple points in my musical development, they were like really important to me. Like I learned to play the drums because of Rock Band.
I mean, likewise.
I started my first band because we were playing the Beatles Rock Band together.
Our band practices would start with a Rock Band game. I mean, the introduction to the Strokes, the introduction.
Yeah. It was like a music history lesson in a way.
It was
a
really
very
was.
like curated like who's who of like these are interesting and important songs.
I got into Weezer
Yeah.
from Rock Band. Like that's crazy. And also just like I don't know, that feeling of like wanting a song in the game and then it comes out. Like that was so palpable. Like being able to play Paramore when that came out on the later Guitar Hero. Like that was, oh yeah. That Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
Also like Dragon Force.
Yeah.
Like
who would we know what Dragon Force was?
Would we know what Dragon Force was?
If it were not for Through the Fire and Flames?
I'm not saying that was like an important thing to us, but I think actually it taught us discipline.
Yeah.
It taught us how to try and fail. Remember that tweet that we saw the other day, which is just like, how old were you when Guitar Hero booed you for trying your best?
Yeah, I remember that.
Like there was something really special and spectacular about failing in that way.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, man.
Yeah, anybody who plays expert Guitar Hero went through some sort of emotional pain to get there.
Yeah, it's such a specific skill. It doesn't really transfer to anything. Like you have to really want it.
But it's still there. Like I was at Dave & Buster's a year ago, and they had a Guitar Hero arcade machine, and I was able to play a song on expert. Like my fingers just did it still.
Yeah.
It was weird that was like still baked in there, you know?
It's just one
Brains
of those
are
things.
weird.
Yeah.
Speaking of formative stuff, the record I listened to this week was How to Save a Life by The Fray.
Oh man,
That's
talk
also
about a formative record.
That is also a record that we don't talk about how formative that was for so many people. When you just like go through how many just like massive songs are on that record, like just I don't know, like She Is, Look After You, How to Save a Life, of course, Over My Head, which not only like launched that career but also made like Closer by the Chainsmokers.
Yeah.
Look at, if you don't know this, look it up. Isaac Slade is a credited songwriter on Closer by the Chainsmokers.
Yeah.
But then also just like the deep cuts of that record are so good. Like 100
oh man,
is gorgeous.
Yeah.
I mean, you got Vienna, which is just gorgeous. I remember like when I was first trying to learn how to sing, I would practice like how much breath I could get from if I could hold that last note in Vienna. And likewise, I would practice my belt to the belt in Trust Me. That's a long held note. And he could sing. Like it was crazy. I think that record made me a songwriter. And I was really thinking about it that my dad, and I was talking to him about it too. My dad got that record because he randomly like went to a Fray show at a local radio station. Like they played for like 30 people and his friend like was like, hey, do you want to go to this thing? He didn't know the band. He met Isaac Slade and was like, do you guys call yourself the Fray because your songs all sort of end like frayed? And Isaac was like, yeah, sure. Like my dad talks about that interaction all the time. And at the time I was like, whatever. But he had this record. He had How to Save a Life in his car.
That's great.
I would just listen to that record like over and over again because it was like that, or it was Yes. And I think I was just starting to kind of like grow out of Yes just a little bit into like something that like I needed a song.
Yeah.
Like a song. So yeah, it's just weird how kind of formative that was.
Yeah. I was introduced to the Fray by Grey's Anatomy. There was one pivotal episode of Grey's Anatomy where How to Save a Life was like the song. And it was like, it was so linked to the show, but it was like such a good song. Like that song specifically I listened to like hundreds, it must have been hundreds and hundreds of times.
Well, I'm like aware now, like in retrospect, that like the phrase kind of like massive, like kind of first rise was from like the double whammy of Grey's Anatomy and Scrubs.
Oh yeah.
Because Scrubs also had, I think, How to Save a Life and She Is. The sort of golden age of like music supervision that kind of turned into like the sync licensing behemoth that it is now. Definitely put the Fray on the map. But for me, it was like my dad heard them at a local radio station.
That's cool.
In Westchester. It was the peak. And then brought the record home. And that's just like, yeah. What's your new?
These are like bigger songs. You're not like, if you have your ear to the ground at all of music, this is not going to be a surprise to you. But the new Ariana Grande song is pretty cool. I like her verse on it because it manages to, you think it's just going to be a stereotypical quarantine song, and Justin Bieber's verse is like, okay, yeah, he's quarantined with his wife and he's kind of happy about it. But Ariana's verse is a little bit more like plays on the stuck with you thing, more in just terms of like being in a relationship with someone, and like a nice, I don't know, I appreciated that it was like, it could have just been a really like down the middle like quarantine thing, and she managed to spin the concept in a slightly different direction. And it's a fun record. It's number one, I think, right now. So like enlightening anybody by bringing up a number one single. But also the new Kygo song is really cool and heartbreaking, written by a school friend of mine, Jake Torrey. Shout out Jake Torrey. And there was one other thing I wanted to mention. Gone. Don't remember. Couldn't tell you.
I like that's a riser. Anybody, we give you permission to just use that one part as the riser in your next EDM track.
Yeah, please do. What's your new?
So I'm like caught between three because, of course, our friend Nick Smith covered Amelia Ali's song "Love the Ocean," which you co-wrote and produced, and it's awesome.
It's so good.
It's so good. I
good.
love the original because it's like this like folk like intimate song, but and what I love about how Nick did it is that he took that emotion but ran with it. Like he moved it to this sort of bluesier place. This like. And the harmonies are so good. It's cool. It's smooth.
Yeah.
It's in a lot of ways, like I feel like her version is like the sad version, but his version is kind of like the angry version.
Yeah, it
like,
brings out the bitterness in the song.
Yeah, there's something really, really bitter about it, and I think he did a great job with it.
Yeah.
The other thing is I heard a cover by Bombay Bicycle Club of "Lose You to Love Me" by Selena Gomez, and that was really, really great. I always liked that song, but was just sort of like a little lukewarm about it. Like I just liked other songs on that record better.
Yeah. It's a good song though. It's well written.
It's a good song. And I think that like hearing Bombay Bicycle Club do their version and just sort of seeing how a song is a good song no matter who plays it or how it evolves, kind of just like check that box for me.
And I would listen to the dude from Bombay Bicycle Club sing the phone book too.
I was gonna say that, and I'm like, if I don't say that, Noah's probably gonna say that. Like that was literally in the back of my head. You took the words right out of my mouth. But my like kind of like bragging, like I think I got here first song is there's a song called "The City" by Ella Jane. It's her first single.
Oh yeah,
has already passed 600,000 streams. I found her because she followed us on TikTok. I think following like the random semi-viral thing that I posted. And so I followed her back, and she's this super talented artist. She plays every instrument.
I found her a week or two ago. She popped up on a playlist, or I think she popped up on Discover actually.
That's so interesting. Yeah. I've been like really obsessed with this song and really intrigued.
Tight as hell.
Yeah, but you also get the sense that she's just starting out. Like there's something very self-produced about it, which only like serves her. Like I think it sounds really, really cool. And it's just cool to find somebody who I know is probably going to be huge like early, because especially on something like TikTok, because you get to sort of see her reaction to the song doing well. You get to sort of see how she's sort of interacting with this first bump. It also reminds me of like when we had our first like playlisting on something, you know, it kind of takes me back a little bit too. So, hey, Ella, if you are listening, we would love to have you on Talking Lion or do a song together or anything. So yeah, keep trucking because your music is fantastic and your voice is insane. Moving on to movies and TV. Ooh. We watched some movies.
We did. We watched more than one.
We watched more than one, which I think makes up for the last two episodes where we watched
nothing.
Big old nothing.
Big old pile of nothing.
The first thing we saw,
Bad Education.
There we go.
Hugh Jackman.
Allison Janney.
Ray Romano.
Yeah. It was so good.
It was really good.
I was really like floored by Hugh Jackman's performance in it. Like I feel like that people are going to talk about this role for him.
Yeah.
There's something very like Jordan Belfort about it, like very, long-winded but inspiring, but for the wrong reasons, kind of. It's a really cool movie, and I think the less you know about the movie and the actual history it's based on.
I knew nothing about it going in.
Yeah,
I think that was for the better.
Also want to shout out my old boss, Gene Park, who did the sound design on it. Sounded great.
Yeah.
Really, really cool movie. And I just thought it was paced really well. And the way it just sort of all wraps up at the end, especially because it's based on a true story, they did a great job of like bringing out the sort of drama of like the day-to-day.
Yeah.
And really getting to the heart of like why somebody like makes mistakes.
Yeah. Really, really, really cool movie.
The other movie that we saw last night was Sword of Trust.
Sword of Trust.
I didn't know a lot about Lynn Shelton before she passed away, but I knew that she was really prominent in the New York indie film community. And I know that she did stuff with Marc Maron. Like she directed his comedy special, which was great. But I just kept hearing about how this movie that she directed last year was fantastic, and it really was.
It was really charming and like really different.
Another movie, the less you know, the better.
Yeah.
Like just letting it sort of wash over you.
Letting it play out.
I feel like the movie was like economic. Like I feel like they didn't do more than they had to get their messages across, which was really nice.
Yeah, it was really simple. And the dialogue was just so sharp and well written and well acted.
Some of the best acting from Mark Maron like I've ever seen. Like he just owned the character, and you feel that. You feel him really like giving the performance everything he's got.
Yeah. And it was just really funny. It was a really like just a really enjoyable movie. Like it was effortlessly humorous. It was funny in just this really like off the beaten path, off kilter kind of way. It was just really human. It's a really human movie.
I feel like since like in like the idea of indie movies wound up almost ironically getting co-opted by a sort of mainstream audience, that like you don't get the sort of indie feeling, like the quote unquote indie feeling anymore. I know this is going to sound really New York hipster, and I'm like, I'm hearing myself. Don't worry.
Yeah, so you can fall on that sword.
But I'll fall on that sort of trust.
The sort of trust
that there is something really nice about like an indie film that really does feel like an indie film. Like it feels like everybody who worked on it like cared about it.
Yeah.
And there's so much heart in this.
Well, and yeah, you get the sense that like the scope of the movie was really small. Like it only takes place in a couple locations, and it really only focuses on like 4 or 5 actors. And like given that it's paced wonderfully and it's engaging throughout, and you really get the sense that it's like it has an indie feeling, and they did a lot with a little.
And a beating heart.
And a real beating heart to it.
Much respect and condolences for Lynn Sheldon, because I'm a new fan.
Yeah.
But you get the sense that there was like just a brilliant person behind that film, and in that collaboration with Mark Maron, that it's a shame that won't be continued.
Yeah.
The other thing that we saw, TV, was HBO's Mick Millions.
Oh yeah.
Which was a documentary about this whole scandal involving mail fraud.
Ultimately the most exciting mail fraud story I've ever watched.
For sure, with the Monopoly game, the McDonald's Monopoly game. And it was fun. I mean, I feel like any documentary, it takes a little bit to like burn. And you were kind of saying like, because it was just dramatic enough to be dramatic.
Yeah.
But when you judge it like a drama, it's a little boring. But as a documentary, it's fascinating.
Yeah, it's real life that plays like a mob movie. And then because of it, I found myself judging it as if it were a mob movie. I'm like, this is kind of a cliche mob movie. But then I'm like, no, this is just stuff that happened. Like this is like part of the reason mob movies are the way they are, is like stories like this. It's just like classic East Coast Italian gangsters just, having a system and making shady back deals. But also I think what was also really interesting about Mick Millions was seeing, they gave you both sides of the story. Like they interviewed pretty much everyone.
The coverage is wild. They interviewed everyone. If a name was mentioned,
then the person they would pop up. They get to talk.
Even if they were like a very small part of the story. Yeah. And I feel like it fleshed out. Plus there was a lot of reenacting.
Oh man, and that's the thing. Like I'm not usually one for reenacting, but it was done so well. Like the production value in this documentary is insane. Like there's like even a really creative use of CGI to like really put you like in the time that this stuff is happening, and it really pulls you through like a narrative thread of this really like, I mean, it's a really convoluted scheme, and like there's a lot of moving parts, and that they did a really good job of like breaking it down episode by episode and making it feel like it, really feel the narrative of it.
And the characters were fascinating. Like everybody's motivations made sense. It was fascinating. It was a very human story. Like I feel like there was something very human about like everybody, like bits of greed, but also just like actually good-hearted people who just needed a little bit of help.
Yeah.
Lawyers wanting to be great lawyers, and what that means, for the people on the receiving end of that. Like FBI agents wanting to have a career case.
Yeah.
But also, like essentially a fraudulent game. And the McDonald's Corporation, at the sort of heart of it. It was really fascinating and interesting to see sort of how one person can affect so many.
Yeah.
It was an amazing documentary. I feel like as a documentary, it is Salieri. And it just had the unfortunate
just it had the misfortune.
It had the misfortune of coming out at the same time as Tiger King.
Yeah.
Because I think in a lot of ways I liked this documentary more than Tiger King.
Sure. Yeah.
But you can't have two documentaries that like smash the cultural zeitgeist. And I feel like that, Tiger King did that, and Mick Millions came out at the same time. Yeah. But I do hope that people will visit Mick Millions, because I think if you're into true crime documentaries, especially when it comes to white collar crime, this is fascinating.
It's super fascinating.
What's the last picture on your camera roll?
The last thing on my camera roll was actually the cover art for the song that I just put out today. It actually came out really nicely. Like with the song, I wanted to make it as quickly as possible and not think too much about it. But I sort of had this idea in my head of what if I took a silhouette of a person and then kind of used the kind of public domain collage style that I've been cultivating on my Instagram and filled in the gaps. So it was this figure of a person that's sort of colored in by paintings. But I did it in Photoshop on desktop, which I haven't actually made any of this kind of art on a computer yet. And I was using the Smart Erase tool on some of these pieces, and it just deletes stuff in such a digital looking way that the art has this kind of glitchy thing to it. Like the left half of the picture has this kind of distorted, glitchy looking painting of nature tacked on the side of it, and I just really like the aesthetic of it. And yeah, for something that was that I slapped together in literally 5 minutes, I think it actually is really pretty and captures a nice kind of feeling about the song. So it was a nice thing to put together. What's the last picture in your camera roll?
The last photo on my camera roll, I'm actually gonna do the last three, because I feel like they're kind of they're connected by 5 minutes. We went on a nice hike right before doing this. Right before we had our umami burger, we went to Elysian, and it just, I don't know. I miss hikes from my time in Colorado and New York. I love I just love a nice nature hike, and this one particularly had such a nice view. And at the end of our hike, we kind of came upon an outhouse, like a public bathroom, and on the side, in really cool sort of dripping graffiti, it said, "The earth is dying, be nicer."
Yeah.
And I thought that was really cool. Felt like a really great name for a pop punk record.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really cool. But then going back, while we were walking, I feel like you and I finally sort of had a chance to talk, not like this, but actually just air out, frustrations about our current situation and some of our fears and worries, essentially saying this sucks.
Yeah.
Just essentially saying this sucks. And when we came up upon the first kind of clearing, and we got to see the mountains and everything, I snapped a picture of you smiling. And because we were just both in kind of a shitty mood, on this walk, but then that felt kind of like the turn, as we're coming on this turn, it was a literal turning point in the conversation. It was nice to kind of capture that moment. And then as we continued walking, we saw this very steep hillside, and there were two trees sort of impossibly were very, very tall, but somehow coming out of the hillside. And I jokingly said, "Oh, look at it, it's us, because we're trees growing impossibly off of a hillside, off the side of a cliff." So that was my triptych. The earth is dying, be nicer. Find the turning point and grow off the side of the hill, despite how impossible it is.
I like that.
Yeah. You didn't think these photos would have a message, did you?
Didn't
fair listener. Didn't see that one coming. What are your highs and your lows?
Honestly, I think my low was just being in Vaughn's today. I didn't expect it to be a low, but there was just something really unsettling about it. It felt chaotic and unpleasant. I feel like the last couple of times we've gone grocery shopping, I've gone to Trader Joe's, and Trader Joe's has a nice system to it, and it hasn't really struck me. But Vaughn's just felt really bleak today, and it was the kind of thing that made me not be able to ignore the situation. It really kind of dug in the heels of the feeling that this sucks. Everyone's kind of I just felt so on edge, because you can't really socially distance in a grocery store. You can try, but everyone's running around, and the person bagging my groceries actually forgot, left the bag on the on the thing tucked into all the other bags, because he had to go and shut down an aisle so that another person could come and clean. And I was just sort of forgotten about. And I wasn't mad about that, because I understood what was going on, but it was just that's the circumstances we're in. The safety and cleanliness of running a grocery store full time takes priority over everything else. And it was just, and the line I accidentally cut 40 people in line, because I didn't see that the line was wrapping around the entire right side of the store. And I saw 3 people while I was waiting in line turn the corner, see what I saw, go, oh shit, no, I'm not doing that, and then leave the store. So it's just like, I don't know. There's something really like arresting about not being able to ignore like that we're in really weird times.
This sucks.
It sucks. It really sucks.
What's your high?
Nothing stands out in and of itself, but I feel like just the watching movies with you and going on this hike. Those were some really nice times that made me feel human. And this is too early for the actual segue, but also I think it was really nice to talk to some people from my past.
I like that.
I'll put that pretty high on my list for this week.
I would say my low, I had like one major low, which was like yesterday. I woke up with vertigo. Like I woke up in a cold sweat in the room spinning. And it was extremely not just like disorienting, but just like terrifying because I just wasn't sure when it would just like stop, and it wasn't stopping, and I didn't know if I was gonna like throw up or like it was just a very bizarre experience. And then essentially because it woke me up at like 4 hours into sleeping, and I couldn't go back to sleep because it just I had to sort of go through the day. I did some exercises, so it wasn't as bad as it was like in that first moment, but it was more or less throughout the day. If I made any kind of bigger motion with my head or body, like I would feel the whole sort of space move and spin, and just made me really think about just my health and like my body, which I hate to kind of think about. It still hasn't entirely gone away, and that's just been really disorienting. Just 1 second I'm just going about my day, and the next second like it feels like I'm on a roller coaster. And I just hope it goes away, because that was definitely a low. And it's hard to kind of feel like yourself or focus on anything.
Yeah.
When you're like trying not to throw up or fall down. So that was the low. Got a couple highs though. The first is I found out somebody I really care about is moving to LA, and that I didn't think was ever going to happen, and that's really cool. So I felt that first high of the week. The second high is that we have these shirts.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal for me. Back when I was in a folk band, I had to like buy 100 shirts and wound up only really selling like 25 or 50 because obviously I was like in an unknown folk band. So I'd always been kind of hesitant about shirts and always, a bit freaked out about getting shirts. But our manager found a company that like can do one-off orders and consistently do one-off orders. And so it made sense for us to do it. And it made sense to do it for this release. And people are buying them, which is awesome. But yeah, there's something really nice because we got the first order. I wanted to make sure before promoting it that like it felt good. It was just really nice to like the design, that the quality felt good, and to finally like be able to wear my own merch, because I don't know, it's just like definitely a point of pride. So that was definitely a high. And then one night, it was like this week while we were kind of just like kind of going through the shit, really feeling like this sucks.
Yeah.
We're like, fuck it, we're gonna watch Mick Millions and we're gonna bake cookies. Yeah. And so we baked cookies. We baked like a whole sheet of Toll House cookies. And I have such like a personal relationship with chocolate chip cookies, as I'm sure everybody sort of does. But like when I was in the thick of it in school, like I had a ton of homework to do, I would always bake cookies alongside doing the work as like kind of like a reward thing. And so I always kind of associate having cookies as like the sweetness to like a sour day. And so it was nice to like actually bake cookies and enjoy cookies. Because there are no rules when you're an adult. So why don't we bake cookies more,
Yeah. Just do it every day.
Should just do it every day. That's what sucks about growing up. It's like the moment you're able to have dessert whenever you want is the moment your body's like, too much sugar.
Yeah. Oh, it's like a Greek tragedy.
It's truly Greek. And lastly, what are you looking forward to?
What am I looking forward to?
I feel like that was the crux of our conversation, like while we were hiking.
Yeah. I think what I'm looking forward to, now that the first single off Different Plans is done, I think I'm looking forward to actually getting into the meat and potatoes of the rest of the record and trying to find
the rosemary.
Yeah. Just find the last little bits of inspiration that are gonna come from finishing these songs and getting them out in the world. Like I'm excited to get through the slog of like nudging vocals 10 milliseconds back and forth and tweaking a synth until it sounds just about right. Because I know what's on the other end of that is a record of songs that we really care about and that we haven't been able to let go of, and that I think people are really going to enjoy. So I'm excited to actually do the work to get those songs to where they need to be.
I feel very similarly about that. I know Tendencies, our next single, is coming together.
Yeah.
This is probably the first time that name is being announced. So you heard it here first, folks. But it's cool. Like, it's nice that that song that we weren't sure if it would exist is now going to exist, and we can actually like, have it be a part of our world. I think the other thing I'm looking forward to is like for the last like 4 years on this side, I've been writing some like folkier songs or like more personal songs in the same way that you have with Music for Birds. But because I'm not a producer, I've always kind of felt like they would just sort of exist as voice memos. I also just was not particularly motivated to do anything with them because, you know me, like if I'm going to do anything, it needs to have a plan. It needs to have all this like stuff. And I also just like didn't really want to bother you with it because we have different plans and you have your projects. Like I didn't want to like throw another thing onto our plate. But we have a friend, Max Chester, who is just a really cool producer, but more in the sort of like folk space of like the James Blake meets Bon Iver area, because he's more of a film score guy. And I kind of like presented him with executive producing this record, and part of that being you're going to listen to, these 16 or 17 songs and see which ones get you excited and like how we can actually make moves with it. And he called me today and he's excited and he listened to like my 80 song playlist of reference material, and I'm just excited to like work on that stuff in the same way that you were excited about Music for Birds, is just like revisiting some of these songs and seeing the sort of spark of life in them reemerge. That's something I'm definitely looking forward to, though I know it's like a long journey ahead because, obviously like I work better with other people, and I'm happy to like have somebody who's just like, that's our project.
Yeah.
Here it is, so that's definitely something I'm looking forward to. So before we wrap up, we introduced challenges last week. You challenged me to cook a meal.
Yes.
And I will say, I made food.
You made food.
I found on Serious Eats a chickpea stew. The ingredients were anchovies, onions, garlic, bacon, garbanzo beans, chickpeas, etc. There's not a difference between the two,
I don't think so.
I don't know. Okay, yeah. And essentially what you do is in a pot, you fry up the bacon, you add a ton of onions and garlic, add the anchovies, and essentially have them like kind of dissolve, and then pour the garbanzo beans in with the like water that they're sitting in. And you kind of make this stew soup out of this combination. Oh, and broccoli. You put broccoli and all that too. So the broccoli kind of gets like boiled in the water. So I did that.
Yeah.
And I'll say, I think I did a good job.
Nice.
Because it was actually really delicious. The problem is that I did not cook the bacon long enough.
Oh, okay.
So the bacon was really chewy, barely cooked, and looks terrible. Like I did not win points for presentation at all.
It's hard. It's hard though when you're following a recipe. Like it always looks cooler on the website because that's someone's whole job is to make food look pretty.
Right. Actually, an old friend of mine from New York, her dad's job was food photography.
Oh yeah.
And food film. Like that's a whole industry.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing.
That, and also like I didn't see like that the recipe serves for.
Oh yeah.
And you're vegetarian, like so I made so much.
Yeah, that is the problem with making food for yourself. It is really hard to find recipes that actually work for just one person.
So I now have like leftovers, but I'm like also kind of questionable about whether or not I'm like trusting this bacon. My stomach feels fine, but I appreciate your challenge.
I'm glad you got something out of it.
I definitely did. If anything, my like just getting there but failing makes me even more motivated to try again.
That's good. That is precisely the experience I wanted you to have, because that is precisely the experience that I had when getting into cooking. It was just like finding something that I wanted to make, making it, and then totally missing the mark on some aspect of it and being like, why did that happen? I must improve. What do you think you got out of the experience of cooking a meal and finding a meal to cook?
I think first and foremost, it just occurred to me like how freaked out like the process of it actually does make me. Like I don't like grocery shopping. Like in a normal world, I don't like grocery shopping. Now it was like, going to Vons and wondering if I'm like forgetting something and not knowing the difference between like broccoli rabe and like broccoli stalks or whatever. Like I feel so much of cooking is like well, you can follow the recipe, but like trust your gut. And I have no gut to trust.
Yeah.
So I didn't know like if I was following things right, if I was doing it right. And because of that, cooking has become such a social thing for me. Like I'll usually only cook if like you're doing it with me or like Max is doing it with me. Like if somebody started coaxing me to do it, there was something really cool about enjoying it once the need for it to be successful kind of went away. Like I'm like, okay, the bacon isn't going to get cooked and it's going to stay that way. And that's just how it's going to be. And if I eat it and my stomach doesn't hurt, then I'm fine. And if I eat it and my stomach does hurt, then I've learned, in a Darwinian way, what I did wrong. So, I listened to the audiobook. I listened to Outlier's audiobook and I made my meal and I sat and I ate it and I cleaned all the dishes because I'm like, I'm not going to, just end here. I'm going to do the whole process and make sure that I don't leave a spot. Once I got the anxiety out of the way, it was nice to like know that like, oh yeah, this is something I could functionally do. I don't need anybody around for it, which sounds like a basic human thing, but
No, I mean, so is literally talking to humans, but it's something that I struggle with. So I think it's nice to have things that push us outside of our comfort zone and show us the basic good things in life.
But I challenged you as well.
Yes. You challenged me to call 3 people I hadn't spoken to in over a year, which is, it was tricky because I was going through a list of people and there were plenty of people that I had spoken to like 6 months ago that I'm like, that doesn't count. So
it's real blast from your past material.
Yeah, real blast from your past. So I called my friend Drew, who was like my closest friend in like middle school. We're talking, this is the guy I played Halo 3 with, the guy I played Ratchet and Clank with. Like this is like he was the guy I was in Boy Scouts with. Like he was like true childhood friend. And I saw him a couple years ago. We actually met up with him at South by Southwest. Like you met him briefly. He lives in Austin. He's still living in Austin. And it was really nice to catch up with him. He was really happy that I called and we talked a little bit about how hard it is to keep in touch with people and how we all say we're going to do it more and like not enough people do it and how it's just really nice to like reconnect with people who you haven't spoken to in a while. And we had a really nice conversation, reminisced about childhood. He told me stories of me that I did not remember.
Was he surprised to hear from you?
Yeah. He was just like, it's funny. I called like 4 or 5 people because I wanted to. I waited to the last minute to do this challenge and I wanted to knock it all out. And I called like 4 or 5 people and none of them picked up. And he was the first person who like called back like an hour later, like, "Hey, did you call me?" I'm like, "Yeah, I actually did." And it was just like, it was a really pleasant conversation. And then I called our old roommate Peter Sauter, who lives in Boston, who I saw I guess a year ago. So like there was less to catch up on because I had already I'd seen his apartment like a year ago that he's still in, but it was still like a lot has happened to me since then. So it was nice to kind of fill him in on that. And
I'm surprised you hadn't spoken to him in a year.
Yeah, I mean we'd spoken a little bit, but pretty much we hadn't spoken on the phone in about a year. So we caught up, and he had actually just made ramen from scratch. Like he actually didn't call me back originally because he was like tending to the broth. Like he cooked it for 24 hours.
Oh wow!
And made like chashu pork from scratch. And it's funny when he called me, he was on the porch with like 4 of his other roommates. And that was a good catch up for sure.
Was he surprised to hear from you?
A little bit, but he was pleasantly surprised, I'd say. And it's also nice because like I think he was having kind of a tough time when we were back at school, and now he's studying the philosophy of neuroscience at BU. And he just, especially even when I saw him last year, he just seemed like a lot more like stable and happy as a person. And it's just really nice to see someone you care about like doing well or doing better than they were before. And then I one of the people who hit me back up in that slew of calls, I'm probably going to call today or tomorrow. It's my friend Federica from school. So I haven't fully completed the challenge of calling through people, but I will have.
What did you learn or get out of this challenge?
Well, one, it made me realize how on the one hand, how relatively short the list of people I actually want to talk to is in a kind of depressing way, but also on the other side, how the list gets longer if I let it, like if I actually hitting call on people that I wasn't sure if they're going to pick up and imagining talking to them, like, even though there was an initial sense of dread, like I have no reason to be talking to this person. There's no reason for us to be catching up. Like, what if they think I'm weird? There was still a sense that like there was going to be a good conversation there, and that it wasn't pointless for me to be reaching out. And in the conversations that I did have, it felt nice to reconnect, and it made me feel more like myself. It made me like feel more in touch with my past and like who I am and the person that I've become now, but also like who I was back then. And it definitely inspired me to want to do a bit more of that and like be better about keeping in touch with people. Because especially in this time where we're all kind of trapped inside and feeling like we don't know what to do with ourselves, like it felt good to just for an hour, just talk to someone about, like random stuff.
I definitely can appreciate that. Coincidentally, I got hit up by two people who I hadn't spoken to in years. And just that feeling of like, even though I don't necessarily feel like we've come a long way necessarily, for somebody to sort of react to an experience and remind you who you were and like where you came from, I think is just such a I don't know, just an interesting feeling. I have a challenge for this week.
All right.
Are you ready for it?
As ready as I'm going to be.
I challenge you at some point this week to go on Sleeping Lion's Instagram and live stream.
Okay.
For like 30 plus minutes.
Okay.
Just you.
Okay.
Just talking. To whoever's in, and if there's two people, if there's three people, if there's no people, just gotta
wing it.
Just gotta wing it.
Okay. I like it. I like that one. Okay. Yeah.
What's your challenge?
My challenge to you is to produce a piece of music. It can be a beat. It can be a 30-second beat. It can be a piece of piano music. It's flexible of what the parameters of it are, but just something. Just make a thing. No strings attached. No real prompt. Just let yourself sit down and make something.
Did you see my entire body? Yeah, just like
you looked shocked when I said that. You looked terrified. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry for that I'm putting you on the spot here.
oh shit. Yeah, I can do that. It's fine. It's easy. I used to do that enough. Yeah. I'm like embarrassed by how embarrassed I am. I accept your challenge, but boy,
yeah, that's a tough one. Especially in these times. But like I said, I was challenged by our friend Amelia to make something, and I was not in the mood to at all. But I'm grateful that I had someone, sort of a friend push me to just like make something at a time when I was feeling kind of down about myself and my ability to make things. So I think there's something to be said for it, and I hope you're able to have a positive experience with it.
I'm down. I accept your challenge. As anxious as it makes me, I think it's the same thing. I think like I've just sort of deferred that, like, you're better, so why should I, kind of do it? And I'm a producer more in like the give notes and oversee a project kind of way. But I definitely you've seen me get like really anxious, and like even though I know how it all works, and like I definitely get very in my head and a little overwhelmed by like blank slate.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm all right. Here definitely goes.
Yeah.
And hopefully
tune into my live stream.
Yeah.
That's gonna be fun.
Yeah. Hopefully the people on your live stream aren't like, this sucks. Hopefully people aren't listening to what I make and they're like, this sucks.
But that's the thing. You also don't necessarily have to share it if you don't want to. I think the important thing is the act of creation.
I appreciate that.
I feel like knowing me, there'll probably be more to motivation in making something that could be shared.
Well, I'm excited to see your live stream. I'll be tuning in myself with the gauntlet thrown.
The gauntlet has been thrown.
I believe that's a podcast.
Yeah.
We hope everybody who's listening is staying safe and expressing themselves, because yes, this sucks.
It sucks.
And, it's okay to feel shit about it. And it's also okay to enjoy it. And I think
Did you see Billboard's video of all these famous musicians talking about their most unproductive day?
No, but that's awesome.
It was a cute little video of like all these like A-list music celebrities just talking about how they're basically in bed watching Netflix. Zed was like, I didn't move for 4 days. Like, it's, I really appreciate the spirit behind the message of like just showing a bunch of successful people who are just like, yep, it is totally okay to not do anything in all of this.
Well, and I feel like, like even looking at us, like, obviously like we're working on some songs and like these podcasts are coming out bi-weekly, but keep in mind, I think most of our day has been just playing video games and watching TV. I actually edit the podcast in between queuing up for an Overwatch game. And it just happens that I'm playing so much Overwatch in a given week that these podcasts get done. So yeah, there's no push to, and I haven't written anything in like a month, which is also why I'm like nervous about your challenge. But yeah, for anybody feeling like they like have to be productive or like have to be whatever, like if Zed isn't making shit, we're not working every day. Like it's hard to be motivated, when your world is different and when there is so much to watch on Netflix. And, in my case, when the room is spinning, literally, you can make this whatever you want it to be. So no worries there. With that said, and in conclusion, we hope you listen to our next episode coming out on Sunday. And If you like this and want to support this, I encourage you to go to our Patreon as well, patreon.com/talkinglion. And yeah, we still don't have a sign off, you know? I think we gotta, you know, I was thinking, here's my pitch. Ready?
Okay.
Until next time.
Until next time. That's good. That's clean.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's not like original. Like I'm not like.
No, I feel like it needs more flavor. What if it was like, until next time, guys? No, that's not good either.
No, that's not good. Yeah, I feel like that. Until next time, cowboy.
Until next time, cowboy. We would like to thank Alan C. for supporting Talking Lion on Patreon and Isotope.